In a fog-enshrouded town, nestled between gnarled woods and whispering hills, stood an old KFC outlet, its sign flickering under the weight of years. Sarah, a teenager drawn to the peculiar and the uncanny, began working there, drawn by the need to unravel the mysteries that seemed to shroud the place. On her first night, as the clock struck midnight, Sarah heard faint, unintelligible whispers emanating from the kitchen. These spectral murmurs seemed to beckon her, echoing with a chilling cadence that unsettled her to her core. The kitchen, with its aged fryers and stained walls, felt alive, watching her every move with unseeing eyes. The manager, Mr. Holloway, a gaunt figure with an unsettlingly calm demeanor, was obsessively protective of the secret recipe. Sarah noticed him often murmuring to an old, tattered photograph of the Colonel, as if in consultation. The air around him was always colder, and his eyes, when they met hers, seemed to pierce through to her soul. One night, Sarah stumbled upon an old, leather-bound book hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the storage room. It was filled with bizarre symbols and cryptic notes scrawled in the margins of what appeared to be the original recipe. The ink was faded, but the words that were legible spoke of rituals and offerings, blending culinary arts with something far more ancient and sinister. The shadows in the restaurant began to play tricks on her eyes. She saw figures shifting in the periphery of her vision, only to disappear when she turned to look directly. The whispers grew louder, forming words she couldn't understand, in languages that seemed lost to time. As days passed, Sarah observed the townspeople's growing fixation with the chicken. They came at all hours, their eyes hollow, their smiles a bit too wide. They spoke in hushed tones about the taste, describing it with a fervor that bordered on fanaticism. Sarah watched, heart pounding, as their shadows under the flickering fluorescent lights seemed to twist and contort into grotesque shapes. One evening, as Sarah cleaned the kitchen, she found strange footprints leading to the fryer, not human, but clawed and uneven. The grease in the fryer bubbled and spat, as if communicating in a language of sizzles and pops. She felt a cold breeze, though all the doors and windows were shut tight. Terrified but determined, Sarah realized that the horrors of the KFC were not just in the secret recipe, but soaked into the very walls of the restaurant. She knew she had to uncover the truth, not just to save herself, but to prevent whatever darkness lurked within from spreading its malevolent roots any further into the world. As the days turned into weeks, the town's obsession with the KFC's chicken escalated into a haunting frenzy. Sarah and her friend Tom, a fellow skeptic and amateur investigator, started noticing the unnerving changes in the townspeople. They were no longer themselves, their eyes held a deep, otherworldly hunger, and their skin seemed paler, almost translucent under the moonlight. The patrons began to gather around the KFC even after closing hours. They clustered like shadows against the foggy glass, their fingers tapping rhythmically, as if performing a silent, macabre symphony. Their whispers melded with the night wind, creating a cacophony of desperate need. Sarah and Tom decided to watch the restaurant after dark. Hiding in the shadows, they witnessed a scene that chilled them to their bones. A regular customer, Mr. Jenkins, staggered out of the KFC, his gait unsteady and unnatural. He collapsed onto the street, convulsing violently. As they watched in horror, his body underwent a grotesque transformation. His screams filled the night as his limbs elongated, his skin rippled into scales, and his eyes sunk into his skull, leaving behind glowing, empty sockets. Scouring through the town's records, Sarah discovered old newspaper clippings about a series of unexplained disappearances and sightings of strange creatures in the woods dating back to the opening of the KFC. There were interviews with locals who spoke of a cursed land and a deal with the devil that brought prosperity at a terrible cost. Meanwhile, the transformed townspeople began to roam the streets at night, their inhuman screeches sending shivers down the spines of the few remaining unafflicted residents. They seemed drawn to the KFC, as if the restaurant itself was calling to them, beckoning them back to feed their insatiable hunger. One night, Sarah and Tom broke into the restaurant to find the source of the transformations. The kitchen was a scene from a nightmare. The fryer bubbled with a black, tar-like substance, and the walls were lined with arcane symbols glowing faintly in the dark. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy, and the whispers were now loud enough to be distinct, yet in a language that twisted the mind. In the freezer, they found vials of a strange, luminescent liquid labeled as special ingredient hidden behind stacks of chicken. The liquid pulsed with a sinister light, as if alive. As they stood there, the temperature dropped, and a ghastly figure appeared in the reflection on the metal door, a twisted version of the Colonel, his eyes hollow, a wicked grin spreading across his face. Terrified but resolute, Sarah and Tom knew they had to delve deeper into the darkness that had taken hold of their town. The horrors they had witnessed were just the beginning, and the true nightmare was yet to unfold. The grim history of the town began to unravel as Sarah delved deeper into the archives. She discovered a long-forgotten diary belonging to the original Colonel, its pages yellowed with age. The diary revealed his descent into madness, driven by an obsession to create the perfect recipe. It spoke of a dark pact with an ancient entity, a shadow that promised success and fame in exchange for unspeakable sacrifices. The entity, a forgotten demon of hunger and consumption, demanded a herb grown in soil soaked with the blood of the innocent. The Colonel, his sanity frayed, complied, sowing the seeds of his own damnation. This herb became the cornerstone of his secret recipe, a recipe that bound those who consumed it to the demon's will. Sarah and Tom visited the ruins of the Colonel's original home, a decrepit mansion on the outskirts of the town. The air was thick with a sense of dread. The walls seemed to whisper secrets of the past. In the basement, amidst the rubble, they found a hidden chamber. The walls were covered in frenzied scrawls, a mix of culinary notes and arcane rituals. At the chamber's center lay a decaying altar, stained with remnants of old, dark ceremonies. They realized that the Colonel's spirit was not at rest. It lingered, bound to the demon, orchestrating the horrors from beyond the grave. The townspeople, now barely human, were puppets to this malevolent force. They stumbled through the streets, their cries a lament to their lost humanity. As the full moon rose, a chilling event unfolded. The townspeople gathered around the KFC, their bodies contorting in unison as if partaking in a grotesque ritual. A spectral image of the Colonel appeared above the restaurant, his laughter echoing through the night, a sound that twisted the soul. Sarah and Tom, driven by a desperate need to end the nightmare, searched for a way to break the pact. They scoured the Colonel's diary and the town's archives for any clue, any ritual or counterspell that could sever the connection between the demon and the cursed recipe. Their search led them to a mysterious, hooded figure who claimed to be a descendant of those who had once fought against the Colonel's dark practices. This figure revealed the existence of an ancient incantation, the only means to exorcise the demon and release the town from its curse. As the night grew darker, and the cries of the transformed townspeople grew louder, Sarah and Tom prepared to face the unimaginable. Armed with the incantation and a resolve to save their town, they set out to confront the legacy of the Colonel and the demon that had turned their home into a realm of nightmares. In this expanded chapter, the story delves into the tragic and twisted past of the Colonel, intertwining the town's fate with a demonic pact that has cast a long shadow over its present, setting the stage for an epic confrontation between the forces of darkness and two determined heroes. The night of the final confrontation was upon them. Sarah and Tom, armed with the ancient incantation and a deep-seated determination, approached the KFC, now a nexus of dark energy. The air was electric with malevolent power, and the cries of the damned echoed around them. As they entered, the restaurant transformed before their eyes. The walls bled shadows, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. The spectral form of the Colonel, more ghastly than ever, materialized, his voice a guttural echo from the abyss. He taunted them, speaking of a world consumed by endless hunger and despair. The transformed townspeople, now monstrous in their appearance, encircled Sarah and Tom, their eyes glowing with a hellish light. But amidst this terror, Sarah and Tom found an unexpected ally. The hooded figure appeared, revealing herself as a guardian of ancient secrets, tasked with containing the evil unleashed by the Colonel's folly. Together, they began the incantation, the ancient words cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope. The Colonel's spirit writhed in agony as the power of the curse began to wane. The demon, now visible as a shadowy, grotesque entity, emerged, its form flickering between this world and the next. The battle was fierce and unforgiving. The hooded guardian channeled her ancestral powers, countering the demon's assaults. Sarah and Tom, with every recitation of the incantation, weakened the bond between the demon and the mortal plane. The air crackled with eldritch energy, the very fabric of reality straining under the clash of ancient forces. As the final words of the incantation were spoken, a blinding light enveloped the restaurant. The demon, with a deafening screech, was torn from this world, its hold on the townspeople shattered. The Colonel's spirit, released from its eternal torment, faded away with a look of peace. The KFC crumbled into dust, a final echo of its sinister past. As dawn broke, the townspeople, freed from their curse, awoke as if from a deep, nightmarish slumber. The town, once shrouded in darkness, saw its first true sunrise in decades. Sarah and Tom, exhausted but triumphant, watched as the town slowly pieced itself back together. The guardian vanished as mysteriously as she had appeared, her duty fulfilled. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones of the night the horror ended, the night when two brave souls faced the abyss and emerged victorious. In the aftermath, the town recovered, but the memories of that terrifying time lingered. The ruins of the KFC became a solemn reminder of the cost of meddling with forces beyond comprehension. And for Sarah and Tom, their lives forever changed. The experience became a testament to their courage and a bond that would never break. In this expanded chapter, the story reaches its dramatic and otherworldly climax, blending action, supernatural horror, and a sense of profound resolve as the protagonists confront and overcome the demonic forces that have plagued their town, leaving a lasting impact on their lives and their community.